So last night, I went to a Wisdom 2.0 dinner party. And so I had Sarah Critchfield from Fetzer on my right. I had Dr. Sarah King to my diagonal. I had Grania from the Wisdom 2.0 team, the center, the core of everything in my front. I had Michelle Rugebrink on my left. And I had Eldra Jackson III right here, next to me. So luckiest human on the planet, right? All right, so you guys are in for a treat. Eldra is also one of our faculty member with the Hearts Path. He's in his second iteration of coming and speaking to the global community live about going inside and then expressing it outwards and following your path. So we're so lucky to have him. All right, here we go. We are delighted to welcome Eldra Jackson III. He is a writer and sought-after public speaker on the topics of at-risk youth advocacy, criminal justice rehabilitation, and toxic masculinity. Eldra is the co-executive director of Inside Circle, the nonprofit training organization he credits with saving his life. He was an inmate at the new Folsom Prison, where he discovered the Inside Circle program and began the inner journey that eventually led to his release in 2014 and his current leadership role. A living example of successful rehabilitation and re-entry. It's huge. Eldra has dedicated his time on the outside to serving at-risk youth. Please welcome Eldra Jackson III. Eldra. Woo!
First of all, do I have your permission to speak? I might not need it, but I don't. I'm very conscious and aware of my impact in the world, and I don't want to take anything for granted. I want to honor and respect everyone and everything. Clear seeing, an invitation into a healthy relationship with fear. So many oxymorons in that. Clear seeing. I can't see shit right now. A healthy relationship with fear. A healthy relationship with fear. I grew up in an era where fear was the order of the day. I live in a world now where fear is the order of the day. My father was in the military. I was born on a military base in Wiesbaden, Germany. I can remember my father going out into what they call the field for maneuvers as a child growing up as we traveled around the world. And I grew up in West Germany, Western Germany. I spent a lot of time there. Tanks rolling through the streets, the soldiers going out into the field on maneuvers. I remember being in elementary school and having drills just in case Russians dropped bombs on us. I can remember getting under the desk. I have no idea what getting under the desk was going to do with nuclear bombs, but that was the drill. I can remember fire drills. Line up, go here, go there. Everything was based in fear. Everything was around fear. I didn't have a healthy relationship with fear. I can remember an episode with somebody who was supposed to be my caretaker, who introduced force, violence, and fear into our relationship when I was 7 years old. It was not healthy. I can remember being afraid that you would see who I was, that you would recognize that I didn't know who I was and I didn't know how to be. And I can remember out of fear crafting a persona that could hide that, crafting a mask and a shield that I could hide behind because I was afraid to be seen. I was afraid to let you in. I was afraid to investigate and learn who I was. I can remember the first time I went to juvenile hall. I was 14 years old, scared to death, shaking like Don Knotts. But I couldn't show that. I can remember laying in my bunk that very first night and the pillow warm from my silent tears. I can remember being afraid to show that to the other sharks in this tank. I can remember in 1990 being arrested, going to trial, and being found guilty for the crimes for which I was later sentenced to life in the California prison system. And I can remember the jury coming back and sitting in those 12 seats and hearing guilty, 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 guilty on every single charge. And I can remember what that felt like. I can remember knowing in that moment that my life was over and being afraid to show that. I can remember the first time I hit the prison yard. I was 130 pounds soaking wet. They had men in there that looked like Ronnie Coleman, Mr. Olympia. People who looked like they ate iron for breakfast. I can remember the transformation in my life. I can remember the fear when I first walked into an inside circle group in the chapel and being asked who I was and not having an answer. I can remember that change in my life. I can remember meeting my wife, Holly, for the first time in the visiting room. Having never been in a relationship with a woman in my life. I was 34 years old. I can remember asking her for a kiss on our 4th visit and her saying no. I can remember the next visit when I was finally able to give her a kiss and I knew in the back of my head, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. She tells me I licked all across her face. I can remember in 2013, 4 months before going before the board of parole hearings, to ask for my freedom, to ask to be allowed back into the community. After having done what I felt was so much internal work to find who I was, to have developed a healthy relationship with fear, and being sent to administrative segregation for inappropriate contact with an adult visitor in the visiting room. I can remember sitting in the hole for the first 36 hours balled up. If I could have mustered the energy to vomit, it probably would have been filled with blood. Knowing that when I went to see the board in 4 months, they were going to give me another 15 years. I can remember the fear of knowing there's no way Holly can do another 15 years of this shit. I can remember the fear knowing that there was no way I could ask her to do another 15 years of this shit, to put her life on hold for something that I did when I was 19 years old. I can remember the fear, the internal battle, the struggle of, do I continue to be Eldra or do I revert back to Vegas? Because that's who they want me to be. They want me to be Vegas. They want me to be that animal. And I can remember the decision to walk through that fear, embrace who I am, and continue to be Eldra. And 6 months later, I walked out of that prison into her arms. In this work that I do with Inside Circle, I work with young people. How many people here are parents? One person. Parents. What is the talk? As a parent, when you think about your children and you think about them growing up and becoming teenagers, what does the talk consist of?
Which talk?
Very good question. What's the most important talk? The talk.
The sex talk?
The sex talk. Hold that, because I'm getting kind of old. I might need you to remind me of that talk. I work with a lot of young people now. Young people who they call justice involved, young people that they call at risk. There's a young man that I work with, I'll call him L. At 5 years old, his mother taught him how to sell crack so that he could tend to her habit and help take care of the household. A young man started doing time when he was 8 years old. He's been in and out of the system, the foster care system, the juvenile justice system in the state of New Jersey. And we work with him now in what we call YAY, Young Adult Empowerment. And that program is built to be just that, is to empower young adults. This is a young man that when I met him was what I'd like to call a contrarian. Doesn't matter what you say. If you say the sun is shining, he said, no, that's just a reflection of the moon. L is somebody who, like most of the young individuals that we work with, is afraid to dream. He's afraid to hope. We ask those young men often, what do you want to be? Who do you want to be? What's your greatest dream? And to an individual, they are afraid to hope. They are afraid to dream because that's one more thing that the system can take from them. So if I don't dream, you can't take it. They have become so numb that they are okay with not dreaming, with not hoping. Been working with this young man now for 4 years, and every time we get off of a call, he ends the call with, I love you. He's hoping. He's dreaming. He's no longer afraid of that piece. Young lady here talked about the talk. I've got 2 boys, 2 young men that I'm raising. And when I think about fear, I think about the talk. I don't want to raise any grandbabies in my house. Yeah, I want them to be grown and gone before they have kids. But the truth of the matter for me, the talk is how do I let him know that in this society he's just another nigger? Right now he's 6 years old. 40 pounds maybe. Everybody who sees him loves him to death. He's cute as a button. They want to pinch his cheeks. They want to hug him. They want to hold him. Give him another 2 feet. Give him another 70 pounds. Put a hoodie on him. Send him to school. Today, that's my greatest fear. Will my son come home? How do I deal with that? How do we deal with that? What's the solution for that? I don't know. I don't have a solution. I don't have the answer. But I know that that's my fear. That's not his fear. He doesn't know that fear. Right now, the world is his oyster. Anything is possible. He's the king of his mountain. And it's my responsibility not to pass along my intergenerational trauma to him. That's my shit. It's my duty as a parent to break that trauma. It ends here. It ends with me. I can remember stories of my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, being from Southeast Texas, getting caught up by some of them good old boys back in the woods, escaping from Texas with a noose around his neck. And that man ran until he hit the Pacific Ocean. He didn't stop running until he hit Oakland, California. He never went back to Texas. He didn't go to Houston for his own mother's funeral. I remember those stories. Just earlier this week, I was going to Lowe's to meet Holly. Me and little Manny were in the car. He was in the back seat, asleep. I live in a little sleepy town. Not a lot of people there look like me. It's a town of about 3,000 to 4,000 people. So you can imagine when I say not a lot of people look like me, what those people look like. Come around the bend, go up the hill. There's a sheriff's car. 2 deputies sitting in the sheriff. It's sitting in the car. I look at them, they look at me. I keep going, looking in the mirror, just like I do every single time I'm driving down the street and I see a cop car. I'm not doing anything. I ain't got keys or coke in the trunk. I ain't got machine guns under the seat. But I'm afraid. They pulled out, got in behind us. They're right there. I'm looking in the rearview mirror. I can see the color of their eyes. They're so close. They followed us for about a half a mile, peeled off, went on about their business. Manny was asleep. How do I have that talk with him? How do we have those talks? This is the shit that we're afraid of, folks. These are the things that we dance around. A healthy relationship with fear is not about eliminating fear. It's not about pretending that real situations don't exist. It's not about acting as though trauma is somehow magically healed. But how do I sit with that? Being at this conference with these awakened people, being online with these folks, I'm hearing a theme. How do I be? How do I sit? How do I exist? How do I embrace? How do I come into relationship with? How do I access my wholeness? How do I access the entirety of my being? It starts with the willingness to step into that fear. Not run from it, not hide from it, not try to make it go away. How do I be? I'm scared as shit right now on this stage. Why am I up here? Why does Soren ask me to come to these places? Who am I? What right do I have? What value do I bring? Do I sound like an idiot? Thank you. But the fear remains. The fear remains. So what do I do with that? We've got another initiative that we're working with, transformational housing. I don't know how many of you are familiar with what they call transitional housing, but transitional housing is something for individuals who are system involved. Maybe they've got issues with substances. Maybe they've done quite a bit of time in penal systems, and they want them to be able to make a transition back into the world. So you go into these houses full of other junkies, full of other felons, and you're just sitting around, you're just in there. An initiative that we have is transformational housing, a space for individuals to come and sit with their fears and transform their lives, sit in spaces of healing, begin to train. How do I become human? That's something I didn't know how to do. I don't know about you all, but I didn't get a handbook on how to become human. I'm still working it out. I'm still trying to figure it out every single day. And in these transformational houses, there is space to sit in circle. There is space to be. There is space to learn. There's space to be held. And there's space to learn how to say, I love you. That was a phrase that I was very afraid of. And it still elicits a bit of fear today. What does that mean, I love you? What does it mean if I let you love me? What does it mean if I let you in? If I let you in, I'm opening myself to be hurt. And I've got plenty of experience with that. But what I'm learning as a human being, that being willing to love means being willing to embrace the fear of being hurt. I'm gonna be hurt. You're gonna let me down. You're human. I'm gonna let you down. I'm human. It's my nature. But am I willing to step into that space? Am I willing to step into that human experience? Or do I want to be a husk of a human? I know what that feels like. I know what the result of that is. When I am a husk of a human, when I am not stepping into the potential of who I am and who I can be, what I step into is my ability to other you. And my track record says that when I other you, big trouble in Little China. When I begin to other people, that little dude right there is not getting the best of who I am. This little dude right here is getting robbed of what he deserves. What I'm teaching him is how to be afraid in a space where he should be safe. What I'm teaching him is that the world is not safe. Are there spaces and places in the world that are not safe? Of course there are. That is a reality. But I have a choice. I'm going to say that again. I have a choice. We all have a choice. You heard the name of the organization Inside Circle. When Inside Circle, I don't know how many of you know the story of Inside Circle and its origins, but it was born following a massive race riot in 1996 on Beef Facility in New Folsom, just east of Sacramento. It's got its own city. If you write a letter there, you're writing to Repressa, California. They let that riot go on for 40 minutes before the governor's office gave permission to stop it. And when the governor's office gave permission to stop it, they started firing live rounds from Mini 14s. 40 minutes is a long time, folks. They gave me 20 minutes up here. I'm looking at this clock. 40 minutes is a long time to be engaged in hand-to-hand Mortal Kombat. When that incident was over, a year later, when that lockdown came up, Patrick Nolan went around to the leaders of the Bloods, the Crips, the Nuestra Familia, the Mexican Mafia, the Aryan Brotherhood, and invited them into a space that he was putting together. And what we learned how to do in that space was step into that fear. Everybody in that room was afraid of everybody else in that room. Everybody in that room viewed everybody else in that room as a threat, as a mortal enemy. And what we learned how to do and put together in those spaces was a willingness to put the mask down and show the fear, admit the fear. Oh shit, you scared too? Damn, I didn't know that. We're more alike than I thought. And what that did in that space and in that time on that yard, because though California likes to think they're super progressive, the prison system is one of the most segregated places on the face of this planet. The California prison system is more segregated than old school Jim Crow, Alabama, Mississippi. What we learned how to do in those spaces was recognize this system no longer works for me. You're not the other, you're my brother. And for the 10 years that I was on that yard, there was not one incident across racial lines. But we were savages. We were the worst of the worst. We were the throwaways. We were those of us in society that no one wanted to claim, no one wanted to ever see again. And we created a culture, we created an environment that still possessed fear, but in that fear, there was a space for love. I learned how to love me. And in me learning how to love me, I empowered her to love me. I empower you to love me. And that models for you what it looks like to allow me to love you. So if us savages on a maximum security prison yard can come up with that all on our own, what can us enlightened folk do? We got a few minutes left. Let's open this up for Q&A if we want to.
We're speechless.
Yes, sir.
Hey, thank you. I think I speak for the entire audience by saying that was absolutely thought-provoking and super inspiring. So many thanks. And I just wanted to know how can we get involved as, as individuals, as business owners, as people here? How could we support? What could we do to help? Yeah.
Well, I am co-executive director of Inside Circle, and so it is my responsibility to put out a CTA, a call to action. Donations are always accepted. And when I say donations are always accepted, of course I'm talking about financial donations, but me as a human being, as a person, heart to heart, soul to soul, my ask is that you do your work. My ask is that you go inside yourself and find those places within you where you're fucked up. Go into those places and investigate and find the things that you don't know, and get to work on that, because that will contribute to a better world. And I want my little boy to grow up in a healthy world. That's what you can do for me. and www.insidecircle.org. Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Jackson. My name is Stephen Walker, and I am a retired correctional officer.
Thank you for your service.
I would like to know, how do we bridge that fear that permeates the environment, even us, and we hide behind badges, and we put on armor and shields and pretend that we're okay, but we're killing ourselves at an alarming rate that I'm sure you're familiar with.
55 years old is the average age.
And I am the director of correctional health for the union, for CCPOA.
Yeah.
I want to know, how can we bridge this divide of poison that exists in corrections? How did you guys accomplish that? And how can we replicate it and change this environment? That's my question.
So before we leave here, you and I, let's connect and exchange information, and we're beginning that process right now. I go into 3 prisons I'm allowed back into right now. California Medical Facility, CMF, CSP Solano, and Jamestown. And we are beginning now, just now, to live into the vision that Patrick Nolan had so many moons ago, which is to bring this to correctional officers because they need it just as bad as we do. Just last month, I was at CSP Solano and held circle with the warden and her team, the CEO over mental health and his team. We weren't sitting together with folks in blue, but they are beginning to get the concept so that they have an understanding of what it is we're bringing to the residents that they are responsible for. In our endeavors in New Jersey, the correctional officers, the gang unit, they sit in circle with us. They don't sit in the room, they sit in circle with us. The number one agreement of these circles is anonymity. We only got 6 agreements. None of us like rules. We got 6 agreements. The number one agreement is anonymity. What's said in this space remains in this space. That's the only way that it works. And to date, it's worked out. So let's get together, trade information, man, and figure something out. Is that it? We're done? Hey, they telling me to wrap this up. I'm gonna get up out of here before I get somebody in trouble.
Eldra, fabulous.
Yes, ma'am.
Nice job. Oh, okay. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.